I'm so honored to be here at the Main Street Middle School. Do you love school? Yeah. I know the answer is yes. I know the answer is yes. So I just have one request to you. Because, you know, I went to school once in Vermont, and I probably didn't thank the people that made school possible for me enough. Now, how hard, I can tell you that your teachers, your principal, your administrators, your staff are working so hard every day to make sure that you get the best education possible. So let's give them a hand, huh? Come on. Now, I want to just acknowledge a few other folks before we get started here. First of all, I want to acknowledge a few other dignitaries, because I'm not the only person who ran for office and won here. First of all, your mayor and your representative from this great town, Mary Hoop. Let's give it up for Mary. One of your 3 state senators, Anthony Polina, who's working hard for you every day. Thank you, Anthony. I guess that's it. Listen, before we get to the main message here today about, that we're going to talk about your effort and how proud I am to be here to talk about Buy Local in this holiday season. We'll get there in a minute. I just want to mention something that might put the students to sleep, so I'll keep it short. But today's December 1st, and on December 1st, by statute, I have to send out a letter as governor letting our school boards who work so hard for you and our local communities who work so hard for you know what we believe the statewide property tax rate will be this year. And for those of you that know how great this school is, one of the reasons it's so great is that we have a school funding formula that allows every student in Vermont to have equal access to resources in this state. We're the only state in the country that ensures that every community has the same opportunity to make choices about spending and then has the same tax rate as all those communities that make that same spending choice. We have some good news. We believe that if our school boards continue to do the job that they've been doing so well of level funding our school budgets across the state as our student population dwindles, and if we give a 2.1% increase to the overall base education rate, which we intend to do, it's been held frozen for the last 2 years, we're going to increase it by 2.1%. But if the school boards can do their good work of returning in the 3rd year in a row with a zero-based increase in their school budgets, and we increase the base education spending amount by 2.1%, we're confident that we can have 5% reserves in the education fund, and there will be no increase in the statewide property tax this year. That's my goal. As Vermonters struggle in tough economic times, the toughest recession in American history, we want to make sure that property taxes remain affordable as we can. And the good news is that we believe we can hold the statewide property tax at 0% increase if the school boards continue to do their good work. So that's the good news. That allows a 5% reserve in the education fund, which is absolutely critical, and that's good news for taxpayers in this great state. So thank you to the school boards that have worked so hard to reduce spending. We are finding that the teacher count, the staff count in our schools is dropping for the first time in recent memory. That's a tribute to their good work as the student populations decline around the state.
Let her rip. We're here to answer questions that you have.
Governor, a few minutes ago you said that the governor is only as good as the people that he chooses. Why then was Mike O'Neill fired as the Director of Emergency Management?
You know, Mike did a great job as Director of Emergency Management. An opening came up in the fire safety director, and he was interested in that position. I was very glad that he took that position because I think he'll do a great job.
Why weren't we informed? It was such a big deal last December when he was appointed. Why weren't we even informed when he lost his job?
Well, you know, you're choosing terms that I wouldn't use. I don't comment on specific personnel issues in my administration. All I can tell you is Mike is going to do a great job as fire director. I know that that's an area that he has great expertise in, and I know he's looking forward to doing that job.
Did he do well as the director of emergency management, though?
As I said, I'm not going to comment on personnel shifts that happen within the administration, except to say that I have tremendous confidence in him to do the job that he's taken. And, you know, as you look at the recovery from Irene and the other storms that we had this spring, I think the fact that we are where we are, that we've made the progress that we had, is a tribute to everybody that worked so hard. It was a group effort. And Mike was a part of that effort, and I'm proud of all the work that was done.
Was it just not a good fit?
As I said, I don't comment on specific personnel issues except to say that Mike has a job that I know he's excited about. I'm delighted that he's doing it. I'm excited about his doing it. He's a very capable employee, and he's going to do a great job.
Well, presumably you wouldn't make a change unless there was a reason.
As I said, I don't discuss specific personnel issues except to say that I have a lot of confidence in him, and he's going to do a great job as Director of Fire Safety.
When was he let go from that position?
He took his new position about 10 days ago.
Yeah, and by the way, there was a small story about this in the Free Press a week or so ago. I mean, I don't know what secret you're talking about. My belief is that Public Safety sent out a news release. And by the way, Mr. O'Neill's career was in fire safety. He was in fire safety. This was something that the Department of Public Safety had been trying to fill for a long time and thought he would be an ideal candidate for this position, and he agreed.
And he is an ideal candidate for this position. So we're honored that he's on board, and he's going to do a great job.
Is Peter Coffey an ideal candidate for his current position?
He's the interim director, and we'll be making a decision about who is best suited for that job as soon as we get through the process. Anyone that's interested should apply.
Does this disrupt any of the Irene recovery, though? It's sort of in the middle of things, and we're changing the director. Does that disrupt anything?
Well, absolutely not. You know, we have a great team. I got to say that from our Irene recovery officer, Neil Blunderville, on down, they're just doing a great job. And as you know, the evidence is in the fact that we've rebuilt now 500 miles of damaged roads, dozens and dozens of bridges, gotten those opened up faster than I think anyone thought we could have. It's been a great partnership between the state of Vermont, local municipalities, and the private sector, and I think we've got a lot to be proud of.
Governor, I understand you support the effort by Governors Chafee and Gregoire to petition the DEA to change the status of marijuana from a Class 1 to a Class 2 drug to effectively make it a prescription drug that can be prescribed by doctors and then have the prescriptions filled by a pharmacist. Can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that and your reasoning for supporting that change?
You know, as you know, I believe that marijuana should be decriminalized, and we should use our precious law enforcement dollars to go after the criminals that are really disrupting our communities. And as you know, in Vermont, we have plenty of criminals to go after. Every few days, it seems that there's someone who's, you know, holding up a hard-working clerk at a store or trying to extract money from a bank that doesn't belong to them. So I believe that we should use our precious resources to go after drug dealers and the other challenges that we face, criminals and the rest. I think it's ludicrous that marijuana is put in the same category by the federal government as heroin and other drugs that are extraordinarily addictive. So I think moving it to a Class 2 drug makes a lot of sense. I support both Governor Gregoire and Governor Chafee's effort to get that done.
But it sounds like you'd even go beyond what they're doing in terms of when you talk about decriminalization. Do you mean by that it would be somebody picked up for marijuana would be given a traffic ticket, or do you envision a sort of a taxation and regulation thing like we do with alcohol? Or
no, I just support Vermont moving to the same system that many other states, Massachusetts, Alaska, California, and others have implemented, which is to decriminalize the offense for small amounts of marijuana and instead spend our law enforcement dollars going after the criminals. Now, let's look at this for a second. Vermont and Maine happen to share the distinction of having per capita the highest number of residents who are abusing OxyContin and other opiates that are sold by pharmacies in and are legal in America, according to the FDA. I personally think that that's a much bigger crime problem for us and a much bigger addiction problem for us that's leading to crime than small amounts of marijuana. So I just think we have to be logical about our drug policies in this country. We're not, and I applaud both Governor Chafee and Governor Gregoire for their leadership on this one.
So what is the education rate that you're recommending?
The tax rate will remain the same as last year,
Is that
which
87 cents?
It's 87, right, Bill? Yes, 87 cents.
137 for non-residents?
137 for non-residents.
And the 2% increase is in the base amount of
The
money per
2.1%
student?
increase, that's correct. The 2.1% increase is in the base education spending amount. The reason I brought that up is that for the last 2 years it's been frozen by the legislature. And I feel really strongly that it's important that we, is that correct?
Yes. So, well, it's been the same for 3 years, but it's frozen for 2 because the first year it grew. Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you say to school boards who, they're dealing with higher fuel costs, higher healthcare costs, and you're basically saying to them, you've got to freeze your budget?
Well, I think it's really important that we, first of all, commend them for the great work they've done. They have frozen their budgets for the last 2 years. Now, we have to understand that they're freezing those budgets at a time when our student population continues to decline. The good news is that for the first time, there's evidence that our teacher and staff ratios are actually dropping, that our number of employees in the school system is dropping as the student count goes down. That's great news for taxpayers. So just like the state budget, there are some items that go up, some that go down. The single biggest cost for school districts is personnel. So they have some latitude and some room as we actually watch the staff and teacher numbers go down commensurate with the number of students we have in the school. So this is good news. They've done hard work. I support them. We support them. They've level funded for 2 years. If they can level fund for another year, because of the student count drop, because of the staffing drop, we should be able to deliver a 0% increase in the statewide property tax. At a time when Vermonters are struggling to pay property taxes, this is really important.
But this still puts pressure on them to come in with 0% increases, which is a challenging thing, as you
Sure.
know, as one who puts together a budget yourself.
Absolutely. They've met the challenge for the last 2 years. We want to work with them to meet the challenge for yet another year. Let's remember that we have a dropping student count in Vermont, that we're educating fewer students every year, and therefore we should be able to do it at the same cost as the year before.
Can you tell us what the teacher-student ratio is now, if it has changed?
I don't think that I probably misspoke if I said the student-teacher ratio has changed. What I should be clear about is, for the first time, we're seeing that the overall number of staff and teachers is declining as our student count drops.
And one thing I could just add to that, and I actually have it in my folder over there. There's no mandate here that anybody have to level spend. What we're trying to do is assist them in constraining their costs. And so about 2 weeks ago, a week or two ago, the governor asked the Department of Education to send out spreadsheets to every school district in the state with a variety of spending indicators. And in that spreadsheet, there actually is an average teacher-student ratio. And it also will say what is yours in your school. What is the number of administrators compared to the number of students? What is your salary compared to the number of students? What is your per pupil spending? And they can look at schools like them across the state and use that information to scrub their budgets as carefully as they can. So, and we actually could provide you that figure afterwards.
Please, that would be great. I also wondered if this means that you're going to be looking at the small school grants. Are you going to be continuing to give small schools a little bit of extra funding?
We haven't made a decision on that yet. All I can tell you is that we're willing to look at all suggestions that help us to reduce the burden of property taxes on Vermonters. And at a time when we're still eking our way out of the toughest recession in American history, we have to do our due diligence, and we'll look at all of the options available to ensure that we reduce the property tax burden on Vermonters.
Doesn't the base education, increasing the base education's spending amount, doesn't that increase property taxes for Vermonters?
No, it doesn't. We believe that it allows Vermonters not to see an increase in their property taxes. Now, of course, It's a little more complicated than that, as with everything with education funding. It depends about what your per pupil share is and how much you choose to spend. And the great thing about Vermont's education funding system that I believe makes it so strong is the fact that every community that chooses to spend $6,000 per pupil will have the same tax rate as every community that makes that same choice. And every community that spends $10,000 a pupil will have the same tax rate as every community that makes that choice. And that's what makes our system so fair.
Yeah, and just to really hammer that home, Thatcher, and Bill Talbot's the expert on this, but it's really just the opposite. You know, by freezing or not increasing the base per pupil spending, that tends to transfer more obligation to the locals. So if by increasing it, we actually...
Yes, you're helping out by increasing it. If you hold your budget level and you have a declining enrollment, your per pupil cost will go up. So this 2% increase allows them to grow their per pupil cost by 2% without affecting their tax rate, regardless of what the per pupil spending is.
So it's good news.
And the legislature, of course, could change.
Sure.
They could increase the statewide tax rate if they felt they needed to.
They could. We would encourage them not to. And what our letter says, which is statutorily required on this day, December 1st, is we believe that by cooperating with our school boards and doing a 2.1% increase in the base education rate, that we can hold property taxes where they are right now, and I think that's important in these tough economic times.
Do you think the system needs to be looked at? Don't we have a study coming back in January, a private study looking at the whole financing of education? Do you think we need to have a major change, or are the basic components of the current system worth keeping?
You know, the legislature authorized a study that's being undertaken by Pincus Group, I believe, that's looking at our overall school funding mechanism and asking the questions: does it make sense? Is it working? Is it meeting the goals that it was intended to achieve when the Brigham decision came down? My own view is that you can always improve a school funding formula, but the devil is in the details, and I am always cautious to raise expectations among Vermonters that we can do better than the system we have, when in fact no one has a suggestion specifically that I think is acceptable that makes that system better. So I don't suggest that our system's failing. I think it's working. If there's improvements, I'm all for them. But I do believe that the basic principle of equity, ensuring that every student in Vermont has the same access to educational opportunity, is right, it serves us well, and we should be proud of it.